Hello, and welcome to Books and Beyond. I'm your host, Jimmy Bennett. Well, it's been the 8 months of COVID now, and it's been a tough time for everybody out there, artists and writers, and anybody else who's trying to get their creative works out there. I'm hoping, part of my show is our theme is, personify your aspirations. Um, I encourage people, you have time now, spend a little time, read, and especially read your local authors. You'd be so surprised at how good and how talented a lot of our local artists are and local writers are. And, so get out of that box of not buying the paperbacks at the grocery store and, try to expand your thing a little bit. You'll be surprised. I really think you'll be surprised and pleased. Reading is a great way to get through times of boredom, and when you can't go out and you can't do a lot of other things. And I also encourage people to express yourself. If you have a talent, or if there's something you've always wanted to try, like writing or painting or something like that, well, now's the time. Take your time, spend some time and learn how to express yourself. And you'd be surprised at what you might even come up with. It's quite a beautiful process. Um, Part of that is I belong to an organization called kappa, the Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association. And it's for writers and illustrators, publishers, agents, anybody who has anything to do with the written word. But it's a wonderful organization. It's very encouraging, gives you a lot of information, a lot of networking. I belong to the Southeastern chapter, and my guest today belongs to the Southwest chapter of kappa. Is where I met her. And her name is Valerie Taylor, and she's written her debut novel called What's Not Said, published by She Writes Press. So I want to introduce Valerie. Valerie, how are you?
I am great, Jimmy. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Hanging in there with the COVID and
Yes, and we had real excitement here this week. If I could just digress for a moment. Down in Ansonia in Derby, I don't know if you all heard, but there was a gas leak.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and my family lives over there, and so they kind of descended on my house on Tuesday, and they left at noon. So I said, Get out of here, I have an interview to do.
Yeah. Did they get it all straightened up?
They did. They did. So everything's fine, but it was scary.
Great.
So
yeah. It is,
that on top of COVID,
yes.
it was really very scary.
We lost power for a few hours the other night in the windstorm, and I was thinking, man, it can't even get worse than, it's not like you can even go out. You don't feel safe. We'll just go out and eat.
Right.
So it's a whole new world, but we're struggling through. So tell me a little about yourself, Valerie.
Okay, I'd love to, but first, again, I want to thank you. This is a really great opportunity for me.
Thank you for coming on. Yeah.
Speak about my debut novel. So I was actually born in Stamford, Connecticut, and so I'm a Connecticut Yankee, but not a Yankee fan. And I moved to Boston in the early 2000s after a divorce. And then from there, I went out to Seattle for 10 years for work. And then I came back 4 years ago and retired. I feel like I'm working more now than I did when I was in my career. I graduated from Sacred Heart University in Fairfield with 2 degrees. I had my bachelor's, and then I got my MBA. And then I got a healthcare administration degree from Simmons up in Boston. There was a time in my life where I had been laid off. I worked in financial services for many years, and I just thought, I'm not going to do that anymore. And so I got this healthcare degree, and then I got a really good job in financial services.
Nice.
So then I went out to Seattle. So I spent most of my career in marketing and communications, both on the agency and corporate side. I have 2 grown children and 1 granddaughter, and I'm an avid Red Sox and Patriots fan. But now that Tom Brady's down in Tampa, I'm like the other day, both Tampa Bay and the Patriots were playing at the same time, and I found I was watching Tom instead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he was such a big part of the organization.
yeah. So that's who I call myself, an expert sports spectator.
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So now give me a brief description of your book. Tell me about your book.
So my book is called What's Not Said, and it is women's fiction, or what I like to call it is chick lit for the mature woman. Because I call it that because do you know that there's 75 million mature women in the United States who probably were very much involved with the chick lit revolution back in the 1990s, but now we're all older and we're looking for different types of stories, and we want stories about middle-aged people. We don't want stories of 20 and 30-year-olds.
Right.
So my protagonist is in her mid-50s, and she learns that her husband has a life-threatening illness at a time where she plans to divorce him and rendezvous with a younger man that she had met in Venice. So those plans collapse until she pokes around her husband's pajama drawer and discovers his illness is the least of his deceits. But of course, she has a lot of her own indiscretions that she's trying to justify, and their secret lives end up colliding into a tangled web of sex lies and DNA, forcing her to decide whether she's going to save her husband's life or her own. So that's the story.
Wow. No, that sounds great. Why did you, what made you come about to write the book?
I had, certainly this belief about women wanting different types of stories, but I also, there's a theme within the book about emotional abuse. And I believe that emotional abuse is not taken seriously, because it's not like physical abuse where there's bruises, outward bruises to prove it. And so emotional abuse is often not taken very seriously. And there is a theme of that in the book. And so I wanted to write about that.
Well, that's good. And that's an interesting point because, you're right. There is probably much, much more emotional abuse that goes on. And I think it's harder for somebody outside the marriage to understand how people react to each other.
Right.
Something that you might say to your husband, I wouldn't think was, well, so what? That wasn't, you know what I mean? But maybe it devastated him, and vice versa.
Right.
And there's a lot, so there's a lot to be said of that. It's nice that, well, I mean, people should be aware that, everybody takes things differently, and, and you need to address it.
And one of the things that I found when I started to share the book with agents was they said to me, well, if this woman is so strong, why didn't she leave her husband earlier? And, I kind of looked at them like, what are you talking about? Women stay in their marriages for many, many reasons, children and career and money and family. And it's not easy. And then one year on top of another, on top of another, and suddenly you've been in this marriage for 30 years, and, how do you get out of it? And that's kind of what the book is about. It's about taking control of your life and getting through it and out of it.
So who do you hope to reach with your book? I mean, what are your like ideal readers?
Well, I do believe that they're over 35 and they're women. Predominantly, I've had probably over 60 reviews already on Goodreads, and I found one man actually, a blogger, read the book, and he did this wonderful review for me, and I was very touched by it because one of his comments was that it was lovely writing. That it really just touched me, coming from a male, So it's predominantly, older women, not. I mean,
Since you
enough,
since you brought up a few reviews, I'd like to read a little bit. This is from Goodreads review. And it says, a fantastic debut novel. It is truly hard to believe this wasn't one of many that the author has written, which I think for a first-time author is very, very high praise.
Thank you. Yes,
And
go
a
ahead.
couple others were. Oh, here it is. Yeah, Taylor's dialogue is snappy and contemporary. The book reads like a fun romantic comedy despite the rather heavy subject matter. And that's from Kirkus Review.
Right.
That's very nice.
I know. I was very pleased because this She Writes Press. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but it is a female, totally female imprint. Okay, and so we're a very close-knit community all around the country. Actually, we have authors all around the world. And sometimes when the Kirkus reviews start coming in, we're on Facebook and everything, and the ladies say, "Oh, I got my Kirkus review today. I really don't like it,"
Yeah.
And then so then when mine came in, and I held my breath, and then I read it, and I was very pleased with it. So.
I see. Also too, I've read in your bio here that you're a member of the Westport Writers Workshop, Independent Book Publishers Association, and the Women's Fiction Writers.
Right.
Do you? How do those organizations? How do you feel those organizations? Do they help you? Do they?
Yes. So the Westport Writers Workshop obviously is in Westport, and it's a small group of writers in the area where they offer. Well, it was always in-person classes, small classes of, memoir writing and novel writing and flash fiction, and now we're doing it, on Zoom. But they really helped me get over some of the hurdles that I was having when I was drafting. So you can get one-on-one counseling as well, or coaching, I guess. The Independent Book Publishers Association is a membership, an annual membership, and I was putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and then in January I finally paid the $135 or whatever, and I am so glad I did, because they have been fantastic during the pandemic. Having as soon as we went into shutdown and everything, they started having weekly Thursday afternoon meetings with the members, and taking up topics, about what was happening at bookstores, what was happening at the printers, how people were going to do virtual launches. And besides all those meetings, they have all kinds of other writing type sessions, and a lot of resources. And the Women's Fiction Writers Association also is an annual membership, and I've not gotten as active in that yet as I would like to be. I have attended some of their programs, but I'm also hoping to get an interview with them.
Yeah.
So those are three that are really good. But I also did when I came back from Seattle, and I the first year I was back and I settled back here in Connecticut, I took about that first year to kind of find my way around again. And my granddaughter was 3, so she took up a lot of my time. And then after about a year, I said, I had drafts of this novel in a briefcase. And I was like, I've been carrying it around every place I've moved in the last, 10 years or so. Either I'm going to write it or I'm not going to write it. And I found, I don't know if you're familiar with Jerry Jenkins. Do you know Jerry Jenkins? He's more of a Christian writer, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but he had an online writing course called Your Novel Blueprint, and it's quite pricey. But I watched the intro to it, the sales pitch, and I thought, this is what I need. And it was an excellent course. And there were some things that I didn't, you do it at your own pace. But there was a lot of things, because I've been a writer all my career, there are things that I didn't need, but then there were things that I did need. And some of the comments that are in the reviews are about my writing style, or that, the plot, how the plot went, at the end of the chapter, there was a cliffhanger to go to the next chapter. And I mean, there are techniques that I learned in that program that had I not done that program, I don't think I would have gotten to where I am today. So that was really key for me.
Well, that's a good point, because it's funny listening to you. It's a lot like me. I had this novel, my first novel, I had kicking around for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
I wrote it one way, then I rewrote it another way, and then I actually had a kind of one of them life altering moments, and I decided, well, now's the time. Either I'm going to, like you say, either you're going to write this book or you're not.
Right.
And that's what most people say to me is, well, how do you do it? How do you do it? I always say the same thing. You got to sit down and do it.
Do it.
You have to write. You know what I mean? Write it. Even if it doesn't sound good, you can go back and change things, but that's the most important thing, right? You have to sit down and do it,
And part of that program was, setting a deadline. So I set, like 8 months out, it's going to take me 8 months to do it. And I did it. So.
Yep. Now you're a book reviewer, published book reviewer?
I am. Are you familiar with booktrib.com?
Yes.
Okay. So when I knew I was going to publish with She Writes, after I signed the contract, I needed to look for a publicist. And publicity can be very expensive.
Oh, yes.
So I also thought I really wanted someone that I could sit down and look face to face with, because a lot of them are all over the country.
Right.
And so I did my research, and I found Merrill Moss Media down in Westport. And I did some research and found that an arm of the media company is BookTrib. And I called them up, and I actually got in the car on a very rainy January day and went down and met with Merrill and with Jim Alkin from BookTrib, and spent a couple of hours and decided that they were the ones that I wanted to work with, because they have what I call like they have a menu of options that you can do for publicity. You don't have to commit thousands and thousands of dollars. You could say, I want to do this, this, and this, and that's it. And they price it accordingly. But so I said, my book wasn't going to come out for like a year and a half. And I said, so what can I be doing in the meantime? And so Jim said, well, do you want to do some book reviews for us? And I said, sure. So he sent me 6 books, and I did some research about how to write a good book review. And I did 6 books in 2019, and I did 6 books this year. So I've done 12 books for them. So consider myself a professional.
Yeah.
And I've gotten the authors it's really cool because the authors actually have come back to me and said that they've liked my reviews. So
Oh, good.
I'm going to continue. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing the book trib reviews or just doing them on my own. You probably are aware there's all kinds of online opportunities for getting involved with doing
Right.
book reviews.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I'll see.
It's a matter of time too. Sometimes, writing takes up so much of my time. Sometimes I wish I had more time to do the marketing.
Oh, no, I have a stack of books. I mean,
Yeah.
stack of books that I've read that I want to review, but I'm in the middle of promoting
Right.
What's Not Said, and I'm getting ready to hand off the manuscript for the sequel.
Oh, that was going to be my next question. Now, this is going to be a series?
Yes. So when I wrote What's Not Said, I thought of it as a standalone. And then I had my beta readers all come back to me. Every single one of them came back to me and said, well, you're going to write a sequel. We want to know what happens. And I was like, what? Are you kidding? And they said, no. So I sat down with one sheet of paper, and I'm not a pantser or a, what do you call it? A pantser or a plotter, whatever it is, right? So, but I kind of outlined on one sheet of paper some of the key events that I could write about in a sequel, and I had it, and the sequel was much easier to write than the first.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I have 3 books in my series, and the second 2, once you have the characters and and the settings and stuff, it's it's just different dialogue and different I write mystery, so it's a little different, but you write, yours is a mystery too, so you understand.
Yeah, somebody has said it's a mystery. So yeah, and
I do
there'll
like
be the third as well, hopefully.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, that's just keep going. I find that if I have those ideas on the back burner, it keeps me moving along with what I'm doing too.
Right.
Thinking, well, I got to finish this one because I want to write this one. So now, one thing I wanted to touch on with you, because I don't really know what it means or what it is hybrid publishing.
Oh, okay.
Instead of traditional or self-publishing.
Right. So, as you know, traditional publishing, you get an agent, and then the agent sells the book, hopefully, to an editor and a publisher. Self-publishing, you do it all yourself, right? So hybrid, unfortunately, there are, I guess it used to be called vanity publishing, but they don't use that anymore. But you actually have to pay. I had to pay She Writes Press to publish my book. And there's pros and cons to that, obviously, there's money involved. But the difference with She Writes is that they just don't take anybody. I mean, they take your manuscript, you do a formal submission, and you give them their first, 20 pages or whatever it is. And then they come back and they do, they offer you, it's a tier. So you can, tier 1 means your book is ready to go. You can just move forward. Tier 2, you need some copy editing, okay? Tier 3, they're probably not interested, okay? And so then they put you through a whole rigorous process of, the cover design, the internal layout, the proofreading. And so you come out with an absolutely stunning book. And
did they help you with the cover and all that too?
They did the cover.
Oh, good.
They do the cover. And, we have input, and that's a whole other discussion we could have about covers and everything. But I am exceedingly pleased. And then I did submit the sequel to them, and they accepted that on tier 1 as well. So
Now, I mean, it must have been, it's a little more difficult to launch a book in this, you know, in our era right now of COVID.
Right.
You know, but I mean, I also say, you know, and I tell people not to get discouraged because, you know, sometimes it can be years before people actually pick up on your book, you know what I mean? Or the right person reads it, or somebody, you know, you just never know. I don't know how true this is, but I heard that Wally Lamb, who's one of our more
Right.
famous
Right.
writers in Connecticut, his book was out for 8 years before Oprah Winfrey pulled it up on her show. And then overnight he was boom, you know?
You do
Uh,
hear stories like that. And one of my author friends likes to say, books have no expiration dates.
right, right. Yep. And I think, you know, I mean, and the other thing is too, is, and I say this not for you specifically, but for anybody who's starting out in writing, you know, the most important thing is for you to be happy with your own work. And then, you know, if 2 or 3 people read it and like it, you know what I mean? At least you've touched that many people.
That's right.
You know, I mean, it's much harder now. I find it hard. I love going to book signings. I
Yeah.
love that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love going to events. I love setting up my table, and you know what I mean, and meeting people and talking to them. And to me, that was really most of the fun I had with writing. You know, so far. Now, real quick though, I need to find out now, where is your book available?
I say it's available wherever fun books are sold.
All right.
So, I mean, it's all the usual suspects, you know, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Bookshop, you know, all of, you know, wherever books are sold, you can just, your independent bookseller can get it. Yeah, so it's appearing in libraries.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, I'm finding, so far I've discovered there's about 27 libraries that have bought about 60 books. And
Nice.
New York Public Library bought 16.
Nice. See, there you go. I mean, if you sell a couple books to every library in America, kid, you're going to be doing good. So
there's more there's more libraries than bookstores in the country. So
well, I got to tell you, real quick, got to make this. We're running out of time, but
right.
Are you going to be doing any virtual signings or virtual?
I've
events?
done 2 book clubs already. I have a goal for 2021, well, between now and the end of 2021, to do 21 book clubs. And I have 7 scheduled. I even have a woman in the United Kingdom emailed me.
Nice.
And she has members of a book club all around the world. And I'm going to do a couple of book club discussions with them in March.
Great.
So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Valerie, it looks like you're on your way. Don't forget us little people there when you're,
no.
when you're riding that big wave, okay?
Very good.
So my guest today has been Valerie Taylor. Her book, What's Not Said, published by She Writes Press. As you heard, you can find it everywhere. Valerie, this was great. I'm sorry we even ran out of time. Wish we had more time. But
great. I'll see you
next time we'll get you up in the studio and we'll do it again.
Very good, Jimmy.
All right. Well, you keep writing. Take care of yourself. Stay safe and stay healthy. And that goes for all of you out there too. This has been Books and Beyond with Jimmy Bennett. Take care, and I'll see you next time.